Thank you, guys, and welcome to We're Heavy Metal, a small, agile transition story in hardware teams. Okay, once upon a time, there was a startup, it was about 15 years ago, who was developing software, who was building a company to develop software. And it had 3 founders, and one of those founders, it was me. It was so long ago that even Facebook was a startup at that point of time. And it was also so long ago that we even didn't use this word, the buzzword of today that you hear everywhere, startup. And it was also so long ago that you wouldn't hear a word such as Scrum. And we had a really big struggle to define the product, to deliver it, and to run the process efficiently, until one of my founders gave me this book, and who is a visionary guy, and he said, you know what, we're going to do it in a little bit different way. You're going to be our product owner. And I said, what I'm going to be? No clue. But I read this book, and after this book, and after some other books, and after a few weeks, we applied Scrum, and we really managed to run our process really efficiently. And another book that I read after this was Scrum and XP from Trenches for Henry Knieberg. And this is excerpt from this book. This picture is coming from this book. And what it actually says is there are different kinds of approaches to develop something. On the left-hand side, you will see a rational unified process with 120 artifacts with roles and stuff like this. So you have a thick book like this to learn before you can even start. And on the right-hand side, you have a chaos. And the thing is, it was so easy for us to introduce Scrum because we were moving from the chaos to something. So creating artifacts and roles is easy, very easy. And paradoxically, if you want to reduce the complexity in the companies, it will be very hard because you will want to eliminate the roles and you basically cause some anxieties by the people and so on. So this is very difficult. Coming from left to the right is difficult. Coming from right to left is easy. Okay, so about 2 or 3 years ago, I was giving a talk similar to this about Scrum in software development, and a guy from the audience approached me and he said, you know what, what you say there, it really makes sense, Damir, but will it work for us? So we're different. So we're more like heavy metal. What he meant is they're actually developing hardware. And I was wondering, and I said, yeah, it will work for you. Sure, no worries. But the thing is, what is the real challenge when you develop hardware with Scrum? So the thing is, when you develop hardware with Scrum, what is the first thing that you will run into in many cases, in most cases? Correct. It's software. So you get the full complexity. You have mechanics in there. You have electronics. You have industrial design that you really have to think of. You have regulations, and you have safety, certification, and stuff like this. You have to take care that you don't kill somebody with this thing. With software, you can also kill somebody, but you can cause electric shocks very easily or make people burned if your thing is you're developing is getting hot. And also, it is very difficult to manufacture, to deploy, to package, and also to service. Especially, for instance, in B2C cases, if you deliver a product to a consumer's house, you cannot just enter update the software that runs on this hardware. You will have to think of update over the air, stuff like this. It gets really complicated. But the thing is, it works, and I want to show you how. And this is our very first learning, or my first learning. Don't do any compromises. So Scrum works, really, for many, many teams, and if you want to run it for hardware, you should assume that it works for you, and stick by the Scrum by the book. So this is what I thought, and actually, I came to this situation. My client said, what about your international experience and big teams and stuff like this? Yeah, I said, I have worked with up to 30 people, and some people were in Serbia, some were in Croatia, some were in Poland, and across to Germany, and this is like this. And he said, we have teams like this, and we also have some people in Scandinavia, and also some people in Eastern United States, but we have a huge team in India and even bigger in China. So this was the initial setup, and the thing is, when you do this, how can you run Scrum ceremonies in 3 different time zones? If you see on the right-hand side, those guys are going to sleep. And on the left-hand side, there is a rooster. And this means those guys will have to get up early only to run the daily Scrum. And we actually had a guy in the eastern United States who was getting up early, about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, to run the daily Scrum. And we heard a rooster every daily Scrum because it was midday in Germany, and we heard every day American rooster. And the other guys, they were staying for long hours in China, in India, and only to really run this process. And if you want to do this like this, you have to do a lot of convincing. And convincing means it doesn't work to tell them via Skype or whatever, Scrum is great and stuff like this. You will want to go to those people, and I was lucky to go to visit them to many places. And the most amazing thing that I've seen on this adventure was India, and I had the chance to talk to engineers and their managers and to sell them the concept of Scrum. And in the end, it worked. We really applied Scrum. So this means don't do any compromises, even though that some people will have to get up early and some guys will have to stay for long hours in the office. You will want to run it as it stands. So the next learning is increment after each sprint, enable the undo. So if you run software development, it is easy to create an increment. You can change some line of code or do something else. But take a look at this picture. This is taken from the Egyptian Museum in Munich, a beautiful statue. This is how the guys in Egypt were developing the statues. So it is iterative, it's very cool, but if you make a mistake at, let's say, this 3rd step, you're screwed. You have to start from all over again. So this doesn't work like this, so we made some progress since then. So the idea is to enable the undo. So you will want to have some kind of a tooling where prototyping is possible without making a mess out of your interim iterations. This means, in the best case, use CAD, SolidWorks, whatever it is, use emulations, simulations, and if you want to try something out, don't put everything in the body of this end product. Assemble those things on the table and do your tryouts and stuff like this. And in the end, this would mean that it will be easier for you to run those iterations. So the 3rd learning is run 1-week sprints. So when I say this to my new customers, I'm a freelancer, they say I'm crazy because everybody wants to run hardware, agile with hardware, with long sprints, like 4-week sprints, and I actually did that too in my very first hardware related project, and it didn't really work. So if you see this, if you imagine, this to be a 4-week sprint, let's assume you have 3 items in there and you plan it like this. It will be so difficult to overview the next 4 weeks because things come up and things changes, and it is really difficult to plan for 4 weeks, especially if you think of the complexity of the products that you're having. And so what actually happens if you run it for 4 weeks is this. So you manage to do one thing, and the other 2, they basically spill over in the next month. So this means you're not really achieving anything. So you're like waterfalling over 2 months, and maybe this will also happen that you will have a spillover of the 3rd thing in the 2nd month. This means that it doesn't really work. And what really works, that I found out later, is this. So try to slice all of those activities into small chunks. For instance, if the very first activity in here is you want to develop some kind of board, electronic board, there are different activities. So you will want to think of what is this board. So think of requirements on this board, and then you will want to do some research, and then you will want to purchase. This takes also some time, track the purchasing, and then when it arrives, you will want to do some kind of first research, first touch of this. Then you will apply some software, embedded software on this, and you can really slice this like this. And if this happens, it's not so bad. So some of the things will also spill, but it's much more better that you have small spillovers from one sprint to another if you have such a short iterations. So it doesn't have to work for everybody, but I'm trying this to apply this since 3 years, and this is what I really learned that it works. It's also very hard, but it works. Okay, fourth learning is create a team. Not silos, and get use of the flow efficiency. So everybody is telling this. So if you hear something about startups, about Scrum, whatever, they will also say cross-functional teams, or we're customer-centric, and whatever. You will see and hear this everywhere. What they mean actually is you shouldn't do it like this. You shouldn't have a kind of a sub-team, a resource, and give them a pile of to-dos, and they're like doing this in 2 weeks, 1 week, 4 weeks, whatever. What you should do is put all of your resources to one single ticket. What I just said before, if you're ordering a board, even a software guy who's not an electronics guy can really do purchasing, tracking of the order, and stuff like this, and they can also screw some stuff to the product, meaning it really works. It's difficult, but it works, and we even had some guys, for instance, who were in charge for documentations, who were running purchasing and stuff like this. So this means concentrate on the flow efficiency, moving the things from left-hand side to the right-hand side, from the idea through the done state as soon as possible. And the fifth and last learning is Scrum works. Avoid not invented here syndrome, which means there's a nice quote coming from Peter F. Drucker. He's saying, all events, but a truly unique require a generic solution. This means look out for what works and then apply it, but only the unique things you need to do in a pragmatic way. So my name is Damir. I help companies to define a vision. I help them to create a strategy, and I bring in agility in the house so it can reach their vision. Thank you.